You planted it with so much hope. You dug the hole, set the roots, watered it in, and for about 3 glorious weeks, it was everything. Then it just stopped. And you spent the rest of the summer walking past a garden that felt like a broken promise. Here's the truth. Nobody tells you at the garden center that wasn't a gardening mistake. That was a cultivar mistake. And today, we're fixing it. Intro. Welcome back to Rooted Aura, where we help you grow a garden that actually feels as good as it looks. Today, we're going deep into 9 perennial cultivars that were bred by serious plant developers to solve the most frustrating problems real gardeners face: borders that go quiet in August, shade spots that lose their spring bloomers and leave nothing behind, sunny beds that need color from June all the way to frost. These aren't your neighbor's 30-year-old varieties. These are modern, field-tested, season-long performers, and the majority of American gardeners have never even seen them on a store shelf. So grab your journal, because you're going to want to write these down. Let's start from the very beginning. Plant number 1, Astilbe, dark side of the moon. Picture the shadiest corner of your yard. Most gardeners treat that space like a consolation prize. Toss in whatever survives and move on. But what if that shaded border could stop people mid-step? That's what Astilbe, dark side of the moon does. The moment it pushes through the soil in spring, you know something is different. The foliage doesn't come up green, it emerges in rich bronze, deepening into dramatic dark purple as the season warms. And here's the thing: before this plant ever produces a single flower, it's already transforming the space around it. Every green companion nearby suddenly looks brighter, lighter, more intentional just because this plant is next to them. Then in early summer, soft lavender-pink plumes rise above all that dark foliage. The contrast breathtaking. Bold without being loud, sophisticated without being fussy. Pause for effect. Soft wind sound. Now, here's what makes this cultivar genuinely exciting for American gardeners. Traditional astilbes are a little demanding. They want deep shade, they want consistent moisture, and the moment either one slips, those leaf edges scorch, and the plant tells you about it immediately. Dark side of the moon is different. It handles more sunlight than any standard astilbe you've grown before, as long as the soil stays consistently moist at the root zone. That opens up planting locations most people would never consider for this plant family. Growing guide. Zones 4 through 9. Bloom time June through July. Soil humus rich, moisture retentive. Sunday, partial shade to more sun than traditional astilbes. Best planting window: spring after last frost or early fall in the South and Mid-Atlantic. Care tip that makes all the difference: mulch heavily around the base, at least 2 to 3 inches to hold moisture through summer heat. When flower plumes finish, cut them cleanly at the base. The foliage will carry the plant beautifully all the way to autumn. Pair it with hostas, ferns, or Japanese forest grass. That dark foliage makes every green companion around it look richer, and it's the kind of layered planting that people photograph and ask about. Transition sounds soft chime. Before we move forward, drop a comment and tell us where you're gardening from. State, city, region, anywhere. Gardeners across the country are watching right now, and every location brings its own beautiful set of challenges. We'd love to hear yours. Blue heart plant number 2. Delphinium violets are blue. If you've ever tried growing delphiniums and walked away with nothing but frustration, you weren't doing anything wrong. Older delphinium varieties were genuinely difficult. Weak stems that collapsed after a single rainstorm. A bloom window that opened and closed before you even noticed. Staking requirements that turned one plant into a weekend project. Violets Are Blue was bred by proven winners specifically to solve every single one of those problems. The color alone will stop you in your tracks: deep violet-blue petals surrounding a crisp white center on every individual bloom. When a full spike stands upright in a sunny border, it changes the entire visual energy of the planting. This is not a plant that blends into the background. It pulls your eye from across the yard. And that color sitting right in that rare space between true blue and rich purple is genuinely hard to find in the perennial world. Soft music swell. The stems on this cultivar are strong enough to hold the flower weight on their own under normal conditions. In areas with regular high winds, a simple support stake placed early in the season is still a smart move, but gone are the days of the elaborate staking setups that made older delphiniums feel like a part-time job. Growing guide. Zones 3 through 7. One of the hardiest delphiniums available to northern gardeners. Bloom time June through July. Sunday, full sun. Soil fertile, well-drained. The deadheading secret: when a spike finishes, cut it cleanly at the base immediately. This plant has the capacity to push a second flush of blooms before the season ends, but only if you act quickly. Important watering note. Always water at soil level, never overhead. Wet foliage on delphiniums invites problems that are completely avoidable with this one simple habit. Feed monthly during bloom season with a balanced fertilizer. Pair it with catmint, salvia, or roses in the front of a cottage border. Violets are blue, creates that layered English garden look, the kind that makes people slow their cars down. Pattern interrupt camera cuts to a wide garden shot, birds audible in background. Right here, before we go any further, there's something with Orth saying honestly. Everything in this video, the cultivar names, the bloom windows, the companion pairings, the zone-specific care details, takes real research to put together. If this is already saving you time at the garden center, saving you money on plants that won't perform, or saving you from another disappointing season, subscribing costs you nothing, but it means every future video like this one comes straight to your feed, no searching, no missing out. Just real gardening information the moment it goes live. Hit subscribe now and keep watching, because the plants coming up on this list get significantly more impressive. Cherry blossom plant number 3, Veronica Skywood Light Pink. This next one gets passed over at the garden center more than it should. It doesn't have the dramatic foliage of the astilbe. It doesn't have the commanding vertical presence of the delphinium. And honestly, that quietness is exactly why experienced garden designers reach for it. Veronica Skywood Light Pink does something in a border that louder plants simply cannot. It connects them. It fills the space gracefully between showier neighbors without competing, and it blooms over an extended stretch that carries a planting from late spring into summer without leaving a single visual gap. The flowers are slender, upright spikes in soft, warm pink rising above compact, tidy green foliage. From a few steps back, the border reads as light, full, and alive. Step closer, and the individual spikes have a refined delicacy that rewards the viewer who takes a moment to look. This is the kind of plant that once you understand how to use it, your borders start looking significantly more intentional. Growing guide, zones, 4 through 8, bloom time, May through July, Sunday, full sun to light partial shade, soil, average, well-drained, maintenance tip. Regular deadheading, removing spent spikes cleanly at the base, meaningfully extends the bloom window into late summer. Important care note. Divide clumps every 3 years to prevent the center from thinning out. This is a common issue with Veronica that most gardeners discover too late when they notice bloom quality quietly dropping season by season. Pair it with coneflowers, ornamental grasses, lavender, or yarrow. The soft pink reads beautifully against silver foliage or deep purple neighbors, and that versatility is exactly why it earns a permanent place in a well-designed perennial garden. Curiosity bridge, warm, inviting tone. Here's a question worth sitting with before the next plant. How many perennials are currently in your garden that bloom for 6 weeks or less and then leave absolutely nothing behind for the rest of the season? Because that's the exact problem the next 6 plants on this list were bred to solve. 2 of them have bloom windows that stretch across 5 full consecutive months without stopping. Sun plant number 4, Heliopsis rays for days. There's a particular Chi. 9th of frustration that hits every August. The spring bloomers are long gone. The early summer perennials have gone quiet. And that border that looked so full and colorful in June suddenly looks tired and thin right in the middle of the hottest stretch of the year. Heliopsis rays for days was bred specifically for that moment. The blooms look like miniature sunflowers, dense clusters of golden yellow rising above sturdy, compact foliage on stems that hold their position through summer heat, without flopping, without drama, without you doing a single thing. From across the yard, an established clump reads like a patch of captured sunlight sitting right in your border. But here's what truly sets this cultivar apart from every other yellow perennial you've tried. Most yellow bloomers give you 4 to 6 weeks of color and then completely shut down. Rays for days blooms from midsummer continuously into October. Pause. Let that land. It performs hardest during the exact Saint Wretch, when heat and drought are at their worst, which is the opposite of what most perennials do. By late July, the majority of a summer border is quietly winding down. This plant is just getting started. Growing guide, zones, 3 through 9, nearly every American gardening climate. Bloom time, July through October, Sunday, full sun non-negotiable. Soil, average to well-drained handles, dry periods with genuine toughness. Care is refreshingly minimal. Deadhead spent flowers regularly to encourage continuous new bloom. Divide clumps every 3 to 4 years to maintain vigor and flower size. That's genuinely the full extent of the maintenance commitment. Pair it with purple coneflower for a warm and cool contrast that anchors the border through the entire second half of the season. Add ornamental grasses behind it for movement, or plant alongside black-eyed Susan and asters for a prairie-inspired combination that carries color all the way to the first hard frost. Warm narrative. Bridge. Two plants coming up later on this list have bloom windows that run 5 full months without stopping. Both pair naturally with rays for days. And once you hear what those two cultivars deliver, the combination will make complete sense. Red circle plant number 5, Dicentra hearts on fire, shade gardens. In most American yards, they get treated like an afterthought. The sunny spots get the attention, the interesting plants, the investment, and those shaded areas under the trees along the north-facing walls, they get whatever survives. Dicentra hearts on fire ends that compromise completely. In spring, the foliage pushes through in warm golden bronze, finely textured, delicate in structure, but rich in color against a background of deep green hostas or dark ferns. It reads as something considered and intentional from the very first moment. Then the flowers open, vivid red, heart-shaped pendant blooms hanging in perfect rows above that glowing foliage. The contrast between the two is genuinely striking. This is a shade plant that commands the same attention as the boldest sun perennial in your entire yard. Pause. Soft ambient birdsong. Now here's the problem with classic bleeding hearts that most American gardeners know firsthand. The plant blooms beautifully in spring, and then as temperatures rise through May and June, it goes completely dormant, disappears. What was a gorgeous spring display becomes an empty gap in the border for the rest of the growing season. You end up filling that space with annuals every summer, which costs money and time, year after year. Hearts on Fire was bred to change that. The golden bronze foliage holds its color and structure well into summer, long after the red flowers have finished, continuing to contribute texture and warmth to the shaded border through the season. That is a fundamental improvement over everything the classic bleeding heart offers. Growing guide, zones, 4 through H9. Bloom time, April through June. Light, partial to full shade. Soil, moist, humus-rich, well-drained. Most important care step, mulch the root zone with 2 to 3 inches of organic material. This retains moisture and keeps soil temperature stable through summer heat, especially critical in gardens south of Zone 6. Sun caution. Even in Zones 7 and 8, where morning sun is acceptable, direct afternoon sun will scorch the foliage quickly and permanently. Position it where it receives bright indirect light or dappled shade through the afternoon. Pair it with hostas, ferns, astilbe, coral bells, or Solomon's seal. The red flowers provide a vivid accent against cooler greens and blues, and that bronze foliage ties warm tones into a shade, planting that would otherwise feel entirely cool and green. Plant it near a shaded patio, or along a walkway somewhere the detail of those pendant red blooms can be appreciated up close. Purple heart plant number 6, Penstemon lavender sapphires. There's a man. Omened every summer in American gardens when the hummingbirds arrive and start working the border. If your garden doesn't have the right tubular flowers ready and waiting, when that happens those birds move on to a neighbor's yard. Penstemon lavender sapphires keeps them in yours. From late spring all the way through August, the flower spikes are elegant lavender-purple tubular blooms arranged along upright stems above tidy, refined green foliage. The overall effect is airy and vertical, adding a lightness to the border that heavier mounding plants simply cannot provide. In a breeze, those spikes move gently, and that subtle movement gives the planting a life and energy that static plants can never replicate. Warm, steady tone. Now, here's something worth knowing about the Penstemon category in general. Many varieties sold in American garden centers are beautiful in the pot and inconsistent in the ground. They perform for a season or two, then thin out. They bloom briefly, and stop. They fail to establish in heavier soil. Lavender sapphires was selected specifically to fix that longer bloom window. Better garden reliability across a wider range of American growing conditions. Consistent pollinator performance, season after season. Growing guide, zones, 4 through 9. Bloom time, May through August. Sunday, full sun. Soil, well-drained, and this is critical. The one care rule that matters most, drainage. This is not a preference, it is a requirement. In heavy clay soil or anywhere water pools after rain, this plant will struggle regardless of everything else you do right. If your soil is clay-heavy, amend generously with coarse grit and compost before planting, or choose a raised bed where drainage is fully in your control. After the first bloom flush, a light trim encourages a second wave of flowers through late summer. Pair it with salvia, catmint, ornamental grasses, yarrow, or echinacea. The vertical lavender spikes weave naturally between bolder companions, and that quality makes it one of the most useful structural plants you can add to a mixed sunny border. Subscriber Bridge warm and genuine if you're still watching and finding real value in this list. And clearly you are the subscribe button is the simplest decision you can make right now. No searching. No wondering if something useful has been posted. Every cultivar list, every planting guide, every growing tip from this channel lands directly in your feed the moment it goes live. Gardening at any level costs money. The right information before you spend it is worth more than any individual plant on this list. Subscribe now and keep watching, because the final 3 plants are the ones that change how you think about what a perennial garden can actually do across a full growing season. And before the next plant, drop your USDA hardiness zone in the comments. Gardeners from Zone 4 all the way to Zone 9 are watching right now, and your zone might just help someone else in the comments make a better planting decision this season. Plant number 7, Salvia Dark Sky. Blue, genuine, deep, true blue, is the rarest color in the entire perennial garden. Most flowers sold as blue in American garden centers are purple or lavender or violet. Some beautiful mix of all 3, but rarely what you'd call true blue. Salvia Dark Sky delivers indigo blue, rich, deep, unwavering from the first flush of bloom in June all the way through the final flowers of October. And holding that color for that length of time, that is something genuinely difficult to find in any perennial available to American gardeners today. Slow, cinematic camera movement over the border. The flower spikes rise tall and bold above aromatic gray-green foliage, upright stems that hold their position through summer heat and humidity without staking or any intervention on your part. And that aromatic quality of tea. The foliage isn't incidental. Deer and rabbits avoid it consistently, making Dark Sky a reliable performer in suburban and rural gardens, where browsing pressure on perennial borders is a real and ongoing problem. Older salvia varieties in the American market typically produce one strong bloom flush, then require a significant cutback before they'll rebloom, and many gardeners cut too late or too hard and lose the second flush entirely. Dark Sky was bred differently. Multiple waves of continuous flower production through the season, with only light trimming between flushes. Run your hand along the spike after each wave, remove the finished portion lightly, and new buds follow quickly. The plant moves from one flush to the next with minimal interruption, from June all the way through October. Growing guide, zones, 5 through 9. Bloom time, June through October. Sunday, full sun. Soil, well-drained, heat-tolerant through the difficult July to August stretch. Do not overwater. This plant performs better on the dry side once established. Consistently wet soil at the root zone is the fastest way to shorten its life significantly. Best planting time, spring after last frost. In zones 7, 8, and 9, fall planting also works beautifully, giving the root system time to settle in before the following summer's heat arrives. Pair it with canaflowers or heliopsis for warm and cool contrast. Combine with ornamental grasses for a prairie-inspired combination that moves beautifully in late summer wind. That deep indigo blue adds a visual depth to warm-toned plantings that no other color in the perennial palette can replicate. Major curiosity build narrative tension rises. The 2 plants remaining on this list are the ones that plant breeders themselves point to as among the most significant perennial introductions in recent years. One produces the largest flowers of an entire plant family ever developed by one of the most respected breeding operations in the United States. The other blooms non-stop from June through October without deadheading handles the worst heat and drought American summers can produce, and draws hummingbirds into the garden every single day of that 5-month stretch. Both are available right now, and if you leave before hearing about them, you'll spend another full season without 2 of the most valuable perennials a serious gardener can put in the ground. Hibiscus plant number 8, Echinacea Revelation Coral. Canflowers have been growing in American gardens for generations. Most of us have at least one variety somewhere in the yard right now. Purple, pink, white, yellow. The conflower family is familiar, reliable, well understood by anyone who's been gardening seriously for more than a few seasons. That familiarity is exactly why Echinacea Revelation Coral catches experienced gardeners completely off guard the first time they see it in person. Slow zoom in on a single bloom. Terra Nova Nurseries is one of the most respected perennial breeding operations in the United States. They've spent decades developing conflower varieties that push the absolute limits of what this plant family can deliver, and Revelation Coral is the largest flowered echinacea they have ever produced. Not marginally larger, visibly, strikingly, unmistakably larger than anything in the coneflower world that came before it. The color is coral pink, not the washed-out pink of older varieties, not the harsh orange red of some recent introductions. This is warm, rich, luminous coral, a tone that sits perfectly between soft pink and warm orange, catching late afternoon light in a way that makes the entire border glow from across the yard. At the center of each bloom sits a dramatic dark cone, contrasting sharply against those coral petals, giving the flower a bold, defined structure T. Hat reads clearly even from a distance. The stems reach up to 30 inches tall. Sturdy, upright, strong enough to hold those large blooms without bending through summer storms or heavy rain. And at the base, a cascading mound of foliage covers the ground completely. No bare stems, no leggy gaps, no exposed soil. The plant looks considered and complete from the ground up. Pause. Breathe. Now, here's the number that matters most for gardeners who are tired of perennials that deliver a few weeks of color and then go quiet. Revelation coral blooms from June through October, 5 consecutive months. Not a claim based on ideal nursery conditions, field-tested performance across national trials in real American garden settings. June, July, August, September, and into October, this plant produces flowers continuously, carrying warm coral color through the exact stretch of the season when most perennial borders are struggling to hold themselves together. Growing guide, zones point 4 through 9. Bloom time, June through October. Sunday, full sun. Soil, average, well-drained. The most important planting detail with echinacea: do not plant it too deep. The crown must sit exactly at soil level, not below it. Planting too deep is the single most common cause of echinacea failure across American gardens, and it is entirely avoidable. Match the soil level of the pot to the soil level of your planting hole precisely. Do not over-fertilize. Rich soil and heavy feeding push leafy growth at the expense of flower production. Average soil with good drainage is exactly what this plant wants. First-year note: young plants invest their first season in root establishment and may bloom lightly. Do not judge this cultivar on year 1. From the second year onward, Revelation coral delivers its full potential, and that potential is genuinely impressive. Beyond the beauty, it's deer-resistant. It's a powerful pollinator magnet. Bees work it constantly from the first open flower, and butterflies follow through the entire bloom season. In a garden where supporting pollinators matters, this plant earns its space on that basis alone. Pair it with ornamental grasses for a prairie-inspired combination that moves beautifully in summer wind. Salvia, Rudbeckia, Penstemon, or Agastache for a pollinator-focused border that stays colorful and active from early summer through fall frost. For gardeners who've been relying on annuals to carry the midsummer to fall stretch because no perennial in the yard steps up to fill that gap, Revelation coral removes that dependency completely. One plant, full sun, minimal care. 5 months of flowers large enough to anchor an entire border. Herb plant number 9, Agastache summerlong. Gardeners in the south know this problem better than anyone. July arrives, the heat builds. Humidity sits heavy over the yard for weeks at a time, and plant after. Plant in the border starts to look exhausted, browning edges, drooping stems, flowers finishing weeks ahead of schedule because the conditions push them past their limits. Finding perennials that genuinely thrive through that stretch, not just survive it, is one of the most consistent challenges gardeners face. Whether you're in Georgia, Missouri, Texas, or the Mid-Atlantic, Agastache summerlong was built specifically for that problem. Darwin Perennials developed this series after years of selection focused on 3 qualities that matter most in real American garden conditions: a compact, naturally tidy habit that never sprawls, an extended bloom season that runs from early summer through fall without stopping, and superior performance across the full range of American climates, from the humid southeast to the dry heat of the southwest and the transitional conditions of the Midwest. Close-up of the soft blue-green foliage, then the flower spikes. The flower spikes are tall and tubular, running from warm coral through soft lavender, depending on the variety within the series. They rise above blue-green foliage with a natural dusty silver quality that contrasts beautifully with the warmer flower colors above. The habit is compact and polished. Nothing flops, nothing sprawls. The plant holds its shape from the moment it opens in early summer through the last flowers of October without a single corrective cut, and the foliage is aromatic. Brush against it while walking per stand, the air fills immediately with a warm, herbal fragrance somewhere between anise and mint. In a garden where sensory experience matters, that quality adds a dimension that purely visual plants simply cannot provide. It's the kind of detail that makes visitors stop, reach out, Breathe in and ask, what is that? Music swells gently. From June through October, this plant produces flowers continuously. No deadheading required to maintain that production. The blooms simply keep coming wave after wave through the heat of July and August, through the transitional warmth of September, and into the cooling days of October until frost ends the season. Hummingbirds find those tubular flowers within days of opening and return daily through the entire bloom stretch. On a warm July morning, with the garden fully active, a well-established clump of summer-long hummingbirds working the spikes, that is one of the most rewarding sights an American garden produces. Growing guide, zones, 5 through 9. Bloom time, June through October, Sunday. Full sun, soil, well-drained to dry. The single most important care rule: do not overwater. Agastache thrives on less moisture than most gardeners instinctively provide. Once established in well-drained soil, it handles drought conditions that would stress or kill the majority of perennials in a mixed border. Root rot from consistently wet soil is the primary cause of failure with this plant in American gardens, and it is entirely avoidable by choosing the right planting location and resisting the urge to water on a schedule rather than based on actual soil conditions. Planting timing. Wait until the soil has genuinely warmed before planting in spring. Don't rush this one into cold earth. Warm soil encourages fast root establishment and sets the plant up for strong first season performance. Late summer care. A light trim, nothing severe, just gentle shaping of the top growth, encourages a fresh flush of foliage and flowers that carries the plant through September and October, looking clean and vital, rather than tired and woody. Naturally deer resistant. Extremely drought tolerant once established. Heat tolerant through the worst of the American summer. Low maintenance by any honest measure. This is a plant that rewards a gardener who gets it in the right location and then largely lay. Visit alone. The combination worth remembering. Place some along in the middle of a sunny border alongside Echinacea revelation coral. Both share a bloom window that runs June through October. The coral pink of the coneflower and the lavender tones of the agastache complement each other naturally without competing. Both are strong pollinator magnets. Both are drought tolerant once established. Both hold their structure and color through the hottest stretch of the American summer without intervention. Planted together, they create a 5-month corridor of coordinated color and constant pollinator activity that carries a sunny border from early summer all the way to frost. No gaps, no annuals, no exhausting maintenance cycle. Add ornamental grasses behind both for movement and late-season structure. Bring Rudbeckia or Salvia into the foreground. What you end up with is a sunny border combination that a serious American gardener builds once, tends lightly, and enjoys for years. Conclusion. Modern plant breeding has given American gardeners something genuinely remarkable in these 9 cultivars: longer bloom windows, stronger stems, better heat and drought tolerance, deeper, richer colors. Real garden performance that holds up across the full range of American climates, not just under perfect conditions. Every plant on this list was developed to solve a real problem that real gardeners face every single season. A border that goes quiet in August, a shade garden that loses its spring bloomers and leaves nothing behind, a sunny spot that needs color from June to frost without constant replanting. These cultivars address those problems directly with less maintenance and more reliability than most of what's been sitting on nursery shelves for the past 20 years. Your garden deserves to bloom from spring all the way to the first hard frost, and with the right cultivars in the ground, it absolutely can. Call to action. If this video saved you time at the garden center, saved you money on plants that would have underperformed, or gave you a direction for your garden that you didn't have before you pressed play, the subscribe button is the simplest decision you can make right now. Every new video, every cultivar list, every planting guide produced here comes straight to your feed automatically. No searching, no missing information that could have changed how your garden performs this year. One click, and every future video finds you. Now, leave a comment and answer this honestly. Which single plant on this list surprised you the most, and why has it never been in your garden before? Because that answer is going to tell you exactly where your garden has been falling short, and it might just be the most useful thing you take away from today. If this list gave you something valuable, like this video so other gardeners can find it, and share it with someone who spent last summer watching their border go quiet in July and never quite come back. They need these 9 plants just as much as you did before you pressed play. End card with subscribe button, planting guide link, and next video suggestion.